Welcome into the show. This is the San Francisco 49ers Report. I'm Chase Sr., and coming up on today's show, a look at the latest Niners injury news going into Saturday's divisional tilt at Levi's Stadium against the Green Bay Packers. Speaking of that game, a programming reminder, we'll be live for another watch party on Saturday, and we're going to do a 2-hour pregame show. Our coverage begins at 6:15 p.m. Eastern, 3:15 p.m. for those of you on the West Coast. We're going to preview this game, set the foundation for it, Super Chat giveaways. We're going to take down some beers with the faithful, and it'll be the best place to experience the game outside of being at Levi's Stadium in Santa Clara. On the Niners injury front, let's begin with Christian McCaffrey, the most marquee player and name that's been on the Niners injury report, but we have some great news right here. McCaffrey, who led the NFL in rushing yards as well as rushing attempts and had more than 2,000 all-purpose yards, fully healed from the calf injury that he suffered in Week 17 against the Commanders that caused him to miss Week 18 against the Rams. Kyle Shanahan saying that McCaffrey geared up and ready to go. He did not practice last week, but was on the practice field this afternoon in the shadows of Levi Stadium. And this is going to be a big week for Christian McCaffrey because as part of this Niners offensive game plan, I think they're going to run it a lot because they know that they have the advantage there because this Green Bay Packers defense all year has struggled against the run. The Packers this year in the 2023 season gave up 200 yards rushing 4 different times. The Packers also 24th in yards per rush given up, 28th in rushing yards per game. Where did San Francisco rank in those respective categories? 4th in yards per rush and 3rd in rushing yards per game. And you think back to that 2019 NFC Championship game against the Packers. I understand it was a long while ago, but the Packers struggled against the run then, and they're struggling against the run now. Raheem Mostert went off. He ran for more than 200 yards and 4 touchdowns, and I think that the game plan, especially with some of the weather coming into play, windy with some rain, could shift toward it being a run-heavy approach for San Francisco, and it helps that Christian McCaffrey is feeling himself. What a year it was for Run CMC, who I think is probably going to be named the NFL Offensive Player of the Year, and he's obviously going to be top 5 in MVP voting. 272 carries this year. 1,459 yards. He caught 67 passes from Brock Purdy and Sam Darnold for 564 yards and 21 total touchdowns. Those 21 total touchdowns tied for the most in the NFL for non-quarterbacks with fellow Niner, former Niner, and the aforementioned Raheem Mostert. So going into this game on Saturday, a big key for me, running the football, running the rock, and seeing if the Packers can match the 49ers' level of physicality in the trenches. And it's time for Kyle Shanahan and Christian McCaffrey to get in their running, play calling, and play design bag. Next up, let's talk a little bit about Arik Armstead here. We haven't seen him play since that Week 13 game against Philadelphia when San Francisco broke the Eagles. Arik Armstead, good news on this front as well. Limited in practice on Tuesday. Been ailed by a foot injury combined with a knee injury, and those 2 injuries have kept him out of the lineup for a good while now. But Armstead in this game, as good as the Niners are in running the football, the Green Bay Packers have also been really good in running the football. And what does Arik Armstead do well? He's a dominant interior defensive player along this defensive line. He's going to play a big role in stopping that Packers rushing attack because Aaron Jones, he has been white hot over the last month. You look at what he's done in his previous 4 games, ending with the Dallas Cowboys in the wild card round this past weekend when he ran for 21 carries, 118 yards, 5.5 yards per carry, and 3 touchdowns. And in the previous 3 weeks before that, one of the big reasons why this Packers offense has found another gear, yes, Jordan Love is playing really well, but they have a complementary attack led by Aaron Jones, $111 against the Bears, 120 against the Vikings, and 127 yards against the Panthers. And this Packers offensive line has done a good job of opening up some running lanes for him to pick up between 5 and 6 yards per carry. This Niners defense against the run, these numbers are very, very interesting because San Francisco, middle of the pack in yards per rush given up at 4.1. But they're facing the fewest rushes per game in the National Football League. A big reason for that is that oftentimes this year teams have trailed, so they've had to throw it a lot. But are the Niners going to struggle against the Packers' rushing attack because they haven't had to go up against a lot of run-heavy teams? So San Francisco rushes per game, some of the fewest in the NFL. They're number 1, but those numbers are skewed. Rushing yards per game, they're number 3 at 89.7 allowed, but again, you have to add in the context here. And rushing touchdowns per game, I don't think this number is skewed. I just think that the San Francisco team does a good job of defending the run deep inside the red zone. The Niners only giving up a half rushing touchdown per game. That is number 5 in the National Football League. What all of this means, to round that topic out, is that teams haven't really run it against San Francisco. Maybe they fear running against San Francisco, but also the identity of these games, teams have had to play from behind. So that's why they've had to air it out so much. But Green Bay, I will tell you this, they're going to try because they need to run in order to set up the pass and the play action for quarterback Jordan Love. And the big question is, how will the Niners hold up? You can answer that question partially by predicting the score down in the comment section here. San Francisco 49ers hosting the Green Bay Packers. Predict the score for this divisional round matchup and join the conversation in the comment section. Fred Winter with a great quote that I want to pass along, because he is not going to allow this to be a trap game. He's not going to allow this defense or this team, as a leader on this squad, to look past Green Bay to the NFC Championship game. He talked, too, about how they were really impressed. Well, how the 7th-seeded Packers beat the 2-seeded Dallas Cowboys, and he said, I think people are going to be like, how do you not take them lightly? First of all, if you're asking that question, then you don't know the type of team that we have and the type of maturity. I've been a part of way too many teams, way too many games to take anybody lightly. And San Francisco cannot take this Green Bay Packers team lightly. The Cowboys did that. They got punched in the jaw. And now Dak Prescott, here we go to Cancun. Today's show is sponsored by Factor. Stay tuned for more important injury updates coming up just around the corner. But with Factor, you can get 50% off using the code NinersChat50. Look at how savory and delicious these meals are on your screen. Sun-dried tomato chicken, honey maple barbecue ground beef, loaded bacon shredded chicken. There are so many different options with America's #1 ready-to-eat meal delivery service. Chef-crafted, dietitian-approved meals that are already cooked and prepared, delivered straight to your door. All you got to do is put them in the microwave, and you get that great deal of 50% off when you use the code NinersChat50 with Factor. You pick your pre-made meals. They are prepped and cooked to perfection. You heat them up, and you enjoy them, and it is that simple. FactorMeals.com/NinersChat50. Check out that link down below in the comment section right now. As for the Niners special teams unit, want to focus in on this area of the game coming up here on Saturday night because it's an important area of the game. And George Odom's recovery from that bicep surgery could help San Francisco be a little bit better with their special teams unit. The Niners opened up his practice window last week, limited participant on Tuesday, and he is one of this team's special teams aces. While playing with the Indianapolis Colts a couple of years ago, he was an all-pro special teamer, and San Francisco on the kick return coverage unit has struggled a little bit this year. Where the Niners ranked in 2023, the offense was lights out. #2 total offense in the NFL. The defense really good. #8 total defense, but number 25 among 32 teams in special teams. The big issue, kick return coverage, and George Odom is going to be able to help there. And if you have lapses with your kick returns, with your punt returns, or special teams in general, that is a recipe to go home early. As for the full participants in practice here on Tuesday, Christian McCaffrey, calf injury, he was full. Jon Feliciano with his back injury, he's okay. Ji'Ayir Brown, Tashaun Gipson with the knee and quad injuries, and then Ambry Thomas coming back off that hand surgery. The 49ers getting their safety tandem back in Tashaun Gipson and Ji'Ayir Brown, as well as Ambry Thomas in that secondary. That's a good boost going up against this Packers offense that's creative, that's been hot of late, and these young guns are really feeling themselves. They don't have any fear, and they have nothing to lose because the pressure going into this game, it's on the Niners as the #1 seed. The Packers, they're playing with house money, And Jordan Love's been playing really good ball of late, especially in his last 10 games. But this year, I thought he was really impressive. And the strides and the development that we saw took place in season, some of the best in-season quarterback developments that I've seen, because early in the year he was so bad, then he ended the year playing so well, and against the Dallas Cowboys, he was great. This year in 2023, first full season as a starter, completed 64% of his passes, almost 4,200 yards, and this really fell under the radar. Jordan Love with 32 touchdowns, only 11 interceptions, but in his last 10, 23 touchdowns to just 3 interceptions. Going back to the offensive side of the football for the Niners here, getting Jauan Jennings back is huge. I think the Niners have really missed him as he's been out on some third downs, on some of the money downs, because he always seems to be the security blanket for whichever quarterback is throwing the football. He finds the right place in the defense to settle down, and sometimes defenses forget about him because they're so focused on a Christian McCaffrey, on a Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, and George Kittle, that Jauan Jennings is able to get free. But I think the Niners, too, have missed his physicality, especially in the blocking game. So you get Jauan Jennings back off that concussion. That's big news for this team because he's been really an unsung hero for this offense over the last couple of years. These players did not practice here on Tuesday. Cleveland Ferrell, knee injury, might be a week or two away. Dre Greenlaw with the Achilles, more on him in a moment. And Logan Ryan, the veteran, not practicing either. A lot of you have been asking about Drake Jackson. He's put up a couple of videos on Instagram. Looks as though he underwent a knee surgery of late because he's been on crutches. As for Dre Greenlaw, one of the best off-ball linebackers in the game, him and Fred Warner forming to be maybe the best linebacking tandem in the National Football League. Anytime you're dealing with a little bit of an Achilles injury, you have to take that seriously. You have to take that slow. But Greenlaw expected to return to practice on Wednesday. And why that linebacking group is important against the Packers, you think about their offense, first of all, multiple really good wide receivers who run a lot of crossing routes. Think about this, Matt LaFleur, Kyle Shanahan tree. The Packers also have multiple tight ends, about 3 deep, who are all really good. And the run game is also really good, and linebackers are important against the run as well. If you're subscribed to the 49ers Report, before we hop on out of here for this particular segment, I want you to type Real One down in the chat. As always, we appreciate your support of the channel, and we thank all of the Real Ones for always tuning in.